All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Tina Burns. Welcome back to your um, summer session for computer architecture for the year of 2025. This is lecture 4C, or the third lecture in week 4 of this course. And today we have a very simple task we're going to go over. We're going to just go over solving the bomb lab for phase 1. Now, this is the bomb lab that was generated by Carnegie Mellon. So it is not going to be identical to what you are solving, but it will give you a good overview of maybe some techniques and different things that you can use as you are solving this particular bomb. So keep that in mind. And I'm not going to go through all the phases. I'm just going to go through one. There are resources and different things online to go through a bunch of other phases as well. So you're more than welcome to look at some of those as well. Um, and just as another note, here is the source, kind of the Carnegie Mellon University that is being used for some of the information that's here, and also a very good run through for doing this bomb lab is located here on at this link here. I'm going to base some of this or a lot of this on these two sources and just kind of do a walkthrough for that. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing we're going to do is go to our terminal. Now, a few things that I want to note here, um, and that is that um, I am accessing this or I am gaining access to this particular terminal and I'm logging into our computer science network or devices. The one that I am on is on cd.cs.edu. If you remember from our previous class, so I'm actually going to go and let's look at that on Apache. Um, Keep in mind that when you do these labs, you must do them on one of the CS machines that are available to you, and not the iLabs machine. So take a look at lecture 4B, and that'll give you more instruction about that. And also read the assignment on Canvas. But here are like all the kind of computers that are available and ready for us to do this assignment. I'm working on this guy, cd.cs.cd, cd.cs.rutgers.edu. You can use these other ones as well, the cheesy Hill Center ones. Do not use iLabs 1, 2, 3, or 4. All right, so I am simulating that. Now, I am not solving the actual bomb that you have for class. I'm solving one that I downloaded from the Carnegie Mellon site, uh, just kind of as an example. And that is a known one. A lot of people have solved the same bomb. So I'm just going to basically, I've already downloaded that, and that's the one I'm going to work with. All right, now that I've got through all that, let's go ahead and log into our machine here. I'm going to open a few windows just because that's what I prefer to do. Uh, I typically open 3 windows because I want to have something where I can read the file. Then I want to have something where I can run my GDB. And then I want to have something where I can run other commands. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and you guys will see them on that where I am as far as the network. Um, I'm going to go into our folder that we're familiar with using, Bomb Lab. Now I'm going to go into, so you'll see what I have here. The one that I downloaded in the last lecture was Bomb 11. That's our Bomb Lab from our server, but I'm not going to work with that one. I'm going to work in the Bomb X folder. I have a few files in here. I'm actually just going to remove really quickly. So I was doing a couple of experiments with this before. I'm going to delete that and so that we can start from the beginning. All right, so all right. So now we're kind of at the beginning of where this bomb is. And the files that we have here, of course, are your executable bomb and your bomb C. Um, let's open up another window here. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the bomb code here. So you'll see this is our basics for the bomb lab. You can feed it an input file. You can also type in the text to the command line, which is the method we'll be using for today. Once you feed it this input file, it's going to look for the information. If it can't open it, of course, it's going to give you an error saying, "Hey, I couldn't open this." Um, and then here's where we get down to kind of the nitty and gritty of the program. We have our your print statements here, which is what you'll see when you initially execute this bomb lab, and then it goes into the phases. Now, the code is very simple. It's gonna expect some sort of input. It's gonna read the line. It's gonna run through the first phase. And then if it was successfully fused, then it will send you this kind of phase diffuse, go into that phase diffuse portion of the lab, and it'll go down pretty much in the same format for all six of these phases. And your bomb lab will be pretty much similar in terms of what it's doing in that particular operation. All right, so that's the basic code of it, right? So we have that there. Now let's go ahead and go back over to our main screen. Now, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to do a few things here. Um, and this is just for our own reference. Uh, and this is helping me set up everything to kind of where I would like it to be. All right, so in this folder here, there's a few things I want you guys to note, just as a reminder. Um, you can access assembly code in a few different ways. I'm going to create some files here just so that we can see where that code is, right? If you remember, we have the object dump um, dash D. If I do the bomb, I don't remember if it's this one. Yes, it is that one. And let's go ahead and output this to a file. We're going to output this to the bomb. Actually, why don't we call this here? We'll call this we'll call that so we'll dump this here for those particular items. Um, and now you'll see we'll have this where we've dumped our file. So let's take a look at that. And this gives us a really good view of what some of what we'll be seeing in as far as assembly code. So this object dump D gives you a printout or an output for your assembly language, right? That's one way to look at it. Now, we talked about a few ways you could do this. You can do this through the GCC, you can do this through this object dump, or you can do this um, in uh, in your debugger. So this one, if you were to look through, it kind of gives you this first portion that's telling you some of the registries and addresses you have. Then it goes down to the different sections where you're starting. And as we scroll down further, we'll see really the different phases and the functions, right? Now we're at phase 4. If I were to go back up, I went down a little bit far. Here's our phase one, right? It gives you the name of the function as well as the address, and then your items here. And then on the leftmost side, the rightmost side, is where you have your assembly code and kind of what you're looking here, right? So if you want to have an easier view or an easier way to kind of look at some of those items, you can use this object dump page or portion here to get a very quick access and view of where it's a little bit more of an organized kind of tabularized view of those addresses and the assembly language. All right, so this is one way to look at it. Here's our code here. Now let's go ahead. Can I move this over? Yeah. All right, so ooh, we have our assembly language using the object dump here. Um, we have our code here. Now, let's go ahead and use our debugger because most of the time when we run through this, we're going to be running through this in the debugger, right? So you guys already know how to access that. It's going to be GDB, boom. Now I'm in my debugger, right? I'm going to make this screen just a little bit larger. As we are in our debugger screen, there's some commands that we should be familiar with already. Um, so generally, when you run when you run the program, it's looking for an input. If you do not give it the correct input, what it's going to do is it's going to blow up the bomb. So let's try. I'm going to run out this layout next. This is going to give us access to our assembly code here, so we can kind of see where we're going through line by line, right? Now, the first thing I'm going to do is we already kind of talked about those different elements. We know what the main function is doing. It's going to say, hey, it's going to print out some text. It's going to start it. It is going to say, hey, here's this information. I'm printing out some text here. And then eventually it's going to initialize it and it's going to call phase one, right? So I want to go ahead and stop it at phase one, or so I'm going to set up a breakpoint there, right? If I want to set up a breakpoint, just put breakpoint and you do phase one. Now, I also know if I want to go down to phase one, right? When I get down here, if there's an issue, what it's going to do is explode the bomb. I don't want to waste time exploding bombs or waste points, right? So I'm going to say, as soon as the first thing you want to do is when you open up this GDB debugger tool, is you want to make sure you put a breakpoint on the explode bomb so that anytime you get to that point, it will stop there so that you don't have explosions, right? Once you see that it reaches that point, you can basically stop it and say, hey, I don't want to continue with my program. All right, you'll see that that has said, hey, I'm gonna do this at breakpoint two, which is somewhere down here, I believe. Yep, that's your second point. So it will stop right there and not actually explode the bomb. And that's what we want. All right, so that's the first two good tips that you want to have for doing your bomb lab. Once you get through that, now I can go ahead and start running through and looking at my code a little bit, right? So let's take a look at this guy. In my phase, in the first portion of the phase, what you want to identify is kind of what is the program doing and what's happening here. So the first thing it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and give you memory or try to take out a stack, subtract or get something from memory so that I'll have an address to put this in. Then it's going to go ahead and move that. You're going to get the response that you've gotten. You're going to move that into this ESI register or whatever the case may be. And you want to run this strings not equal function, right? So I'm getting some sort of input. I'm storing it into a register that I can use, and then I want to run this strings not equal function, right? Um, so I want to try something really quickly. Once we have this particular item here, okay. So it runs this through this strings not equal function. The next thing it does is it tests these two values. That means it's gonna see if these strings are equal. It's gonna run through some sort of computation when it's looking at these. So the output I get from this and whatever your original value is, it's going to test them to see if they're equal. And then the next thing I want to do is if they are equal, I would jump to line 23 of my phase function, which is right here, right? This will tell us and identify where the line is. It jumps to that. If they are not equal, then what happens is it explodes the bomb, right? They're not equal, it explodes the bomb, and then you're pretty much done, right? It's going to explode the bomb, which is way down at the bottom portion of this. But if they are equal, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and put that information in terms of the response, and you're going to return from that function. All right. You basically say, hey, this was in fact if used correctly. Um, right, that's phase 23. You're gonna output the response here, and then you're gonna continue with the next portion of the program. So let's go ahead. We have set up our two breakpoints. Now we can get into a little bit of how we want to figure out what's going on with this item. So let's run through the code. You can run your code by just typing in the run command. It gives us debugging thing. I don't know what that's all about, but here's our text that we saw originally here. Now, so this is operating as if you were running this from a front panel. And it says, hey, um, I'm going to output the screen. What do you want to do next? Now, keep in mind that if we look back at the main function, oh, I'm gonna s- I'm gonna go back to our object dump. If we look back at the main function, if you remember, it is expecting an input value, right? It's expecting for you to input some information to your particular item, right? So let's go ahead and input a text. We're going to input hello. I know that that is not the code. I'm just inputting this as a reference. All right, as soon as you input that, notice what happens here. It goes ahead and it takes you to this first breakpoint, which is here. All right, I know that this first breakpoint is in phase one, and what it's going to do here is it's going to move the information into this particular register. So let's try something a little bit here, right? I just started at this phase here. It gets this, we're moving this into our AOX. So there's a few things that you can do to identify kind of what's going into those things. Like if I do a pointer and I determine what the oh, sorry about that. um I can print the value that is at a particular item if I wanted to, um, in order to give us the data. I have just gone through phase one, and that's where it started. Now, what I also want to do is I want to set up a breakpoint at this next function, the strings not equal function. So I'm kind of going through this piece by piece. Okay, now we're at this next portion, strings not equal function. Now, I received the input from the user, and what I did was what we're doing right now, or what the program is doing, it is taking that data and it is gonna push it into kind of this information that we have here, and it looks like it's gonna push this into this register RA of X. It's gonna take out a few portions of a few registers so that we'll have something to write our information to, right? Um, we have register 12P, we have register RAX, we have our memory address RBP and RBX. It's going to take out all those initial information, initial register, and then what it's going to do is it's going to remove your destination index into RBX, and it's going to remove your source index into RBP. Now, let's take a note of that. Now, we're familiar with those commands. We know what they mean already. My source one, right, or the one that the user has already input to the code, I believe should be the RSI portion here. And we'll find that out very shortly. Now, before I go through the entire program, what I want to do is I want to get to a point where I can see the size of each of these so that I can tell what I've entered in. I know that the command that I entered in was hello. So this text has a certain length. If I can find out what register or what item has that particular length, then I know that this is where my value is. And I also know that it's going to take this information, it's going to store, it's going to have two things that it's comparing. It's going to be comparing the length of my hidden string to the length of my input string, right? Receiving your input, you're comparing that. You receive your input, you put that into RA of X, and then you have your base where you're putting that into a particular item. And I want to determine then using that, I want to look at the string length here. And then after that, I look at the strings here. And what I do in this line is compare them, right? So I get the string length of the first item, which ends up being your input. Then I want to get the string length of the next item, which is going to be what the hidden string was, and I want to compare these two. I want to compare the R12, what is in my register of R12D, to the length of my hidden string. All right, so before I move completely on, why don't we set up a breakpoint here so we can step through the code? If I wanted to set up a breakpoint at a particular address, you're going to just do break, use the asterisk sign, and then you can stop it at whatever portion that you want to stop it at. So I'm going to stop it at 0x4. I want to stop it right here. 401342. Is that where we want to stop it? Yeah, that's that string length function. All right, so we have our next breakpoint there. Now, you want to make sure you set up the breakpoints there and then execute it because it allows you to step through the code, and then it will actually store the information into these registers. So let's go ahead and run the next part of it. So we'll go ahead and hit N to run our next portion. It is now ran through these 4 lines of code, or 5, or however many ever, and we're stuck right here at this portion. All right, I have just put some data into these registers, into these items. Let's check out the lengths of those. So if I go to this print command, I can essentially access the length of those items by inputting the particular address. Let me see if this works. Or all right, so one of these I am going through just to get the access to. One of these should have a length of 4. Let's set up a breakpoint to this next line of code. I'm going to go into where we have this next line of code 4134. Oh, I need to make sure that I do put the asterisk in here in order to have this. Okay, I've set up my next breakpoint there. So, oops. All right, so now I've gone through this. And it looked like it went back through that initial function. I'm going to go back down to kind of where we were with the strings not equal code. That's kind of where I want to be. Oh, I went through that phase a little bit quickly. So let's go back to, let's look at where our pointer is. And let's see if we can get some sizes here. So what should have happened is we stop it kind of here at this initial string length function. It started that and then it went back to this particular item. I'm actually going to exit out of this and I want to start over from where we were because I don't think I set that up to where I want it to be. So we'll go back to setting the breakpoint up at phase 1. We'll set up a breakpoint at explode bomb. And we'll set up a breakpoint at string length. We'll also set up a breakpoint at strings not cool. So I'm setting up these breakpoints so we can kind of cycle through the code here. Oh, and you'll notice that I just exited out of the where I was previously because I did not want to explode anything. And I kind of want to start from where we were at the beginning. All right, so let's go ahead and run our code. We're fine with debugging. Let's type in our command again. Okay, now we're at the first breakpoint, which is at phase 1. We'll go to the next breakpoint, which is going to be at the strings not equal function. Once we get to the strings not equal function, I want it to cycle through one more time. Now it's at our string length function, right? So it's comparing the two string lengths here. And it compares these two. It basically compares the bytes, or it compares the two items that are here, and it wants to determine if these are in fact equal. So I'm going to actually go to the next one here, and we see that now it has looked at the length of this and it has moved back to this particular, back to the strings not equal function. What I want to look at is what was the size or the item that was stored, the size that was stored into this previous value here of R12D. All right, it's telling me it's the size of 1. So let's look at the size of E of X as well. Now, you'll see here that my size of this value, meaning the output that was put in here, is going to be 4. I'm going to do something really quickly just to kind of prove a point. Let's set up another breakpoint. And we'll set up that breakpoint to be at this next line of code here, 0, 0x401 347. Just want to make sure. No, I don't want to set it up there. I actually want to set it up to the next breakpoint, which is 41134A. All right, so again, we have gotten the size of EA of X. EA of X is where my I called this string length function. The string length function executed, and it stored the output of the length of my string into EA of X, and the information that it had was in this RD12 register, right? So what it's telling me here is that my EA of X is a length of 5 characters long. I'm setting up another breakpoint here to step through this next portion of code, and that is just for reference. So the EA of X is telling me it tells you basically how long the string was. The EA of X is the output variable, the output value, excuse me, of my string. It is the output value of this. All right, so now that I have that length, I want to run through another break portion, right? Actually, I'm not going to do a break here. I've gotten the length of this particular item. Um, let's run through a break. Again, let's run right after we have executed this second line here for the string length. So we'll do it at 401, 352. Four one 352. All right, so that's our next line. All right, so now we're at this. We have executed the string length function here at breakpoint 3. So here now we're back at this kind of string length function. Now keep in mind that this is running through our particular item. So we have a breakpoint there. Now we are at our next breakpoint, which is right after we executed this string length. So I already saw that EA of X was kind of that first I saw how A of X had my original value. If we go back up here, A of X had my original length of 5. That should have been your hello character. Um, I want to do one more line. Let's go ahead and set up a breakpoint at this next line. And I know I'm doing this piece by piece, but I tend to do that so that I don't miss anything. As you guys go through it, I'm sure you will probably go through it a little bit more rapidly, but I'm hoping that this will give us a better understanding of what we are doing here. I don't want to define that. Four, one, three, five, two. All right. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to stop right at here, 40135A. All right. So I've now gone through this. So now let's go ahead and take a length of it. Look at our length of our string now. EAX. Okay, so if you remember the last time the length of EA of X was actually 5. Now we're looking at the strength length of EA of X, and it is now 52. And that is because the item that is comparing, or what it just got the string length of here, was your value that was in RBP, which is your hidden string. So I have two things here. I have my hidden string that I have this length in here now. I've basically gotten the string of length. I've stored that, and it's in this EA of X register. And then I know the length of the original one. So if I know that that first one, the initial one I ran through it initially was five characters. If I go back up to where this was, which was, I think that breakpoint was previously string length somewhere around here where I ran this string length function. I should be able to then get the data and essentially figure out what my items are in that register. So there's a neat little command here that you can use. Your X will tell you to print out the item that is in, it will display the item that is in whatever address you select. And this /C is basically telling me to print it out as a character. So I know that this initial EA of X, Kata was giving me the length of this value here, right? It was giving me the length of R R12D, right? So let's look at the items that are in R12D. All right, for some reason it doesn't want me to access that. Let's see what I'm missing here. So if I do this, let's go ahead and access. So I'm looking at the items of where we are here. Um, we have our breakpoint set up at this particular item. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I think I need to be I think I need to be in the string length function. All right, and you'll see, guys, that we are back kind of at this phase one portion of it. Um, Back here at the top. So I think I went a little bit too far in the program. Let us go ahead and yeah, now it has written back to that one. So let's see what happens if I go to the next one. All right. So now it's going to get to the point where it would try to explode the bomb. So we're going to go back one more time and get to the portion where we can actually see the length of it. What we did do successfully is we were able to run to the portion right at the part of the code where we were able to see the length of our values. So we're going to go back one more time. We don't want to explode the bomb. So I'm just going to exit it here and then we'll go back into this. We'll set up our window to do the next layout. Um, we're going to set up our breakpoint. We're going to make the first breakpoint the explode bomb. We make our second breakpoint phase one. And we'll make our third breakpoint string length. Actually, we're going to make our third breakpoint strings not equal. We'll make our fourth one string length. All right, now that we have this, let's go ahead and run through the code. We're fine with debugging. Let's type in hello. That will give us the portion of code we're here. We start off at phase one. We're going to go ahead and skip to breakpoint two. Breakpoint three, now we're at strings not equal. All right. Strings not equal should have pushed something into this register RAX. Let me just test this theory because it could be pushing it into this, or it could be right now it's just reserving the memory for this. And we have it stopping at the string length function. So let's run that. Now we are at this portion of code where it stops right here at in terms of this first option for this string length. I don't want to execute this string length right now, or I don't want to move all the way through this. So I know that it's going to compare it. This is my first line of this string length function. It's going to take this, and the first thing it looks at is it sees if that is 0. This is looking to determine if it's a null character. So it compares this byte. If it's a null character and it's equal to a null character, what it does is it just returns and says, hey, there's nothing there, right? This is not particularly a null character, so it should go to this next portion for the string length. So I'm going to put a so again, sorry about that. The first thing it's going to do is run through this first. It compares this to a null character. If that's not equal, it's going to jump to the string length here of 23. We know it's not a null character, so it's not going to do that. Instead, it's going to move your RDI into this RDAX register. Going to move this, and then you're going to compare your bytes here. If it's not equal to that, then you're going to run to item 8, where you're going to compare those actions here. So what I want to do is, I don't believe that this is going to be a null character. I want to go ahead and set it up to, I get to a portion where I am right here so that I can see what those values are. So all this is doing is it's comparing these, it's searching through the string until it finds the null termination character, at which point it stops. So it keeps on adding and incrementing this value of 1 uh, to count the length of the string. Once it gets to the end, then it basically exits the program. So let's jump down a little bit further and let's actually have our breakpoint set to right around here. After we have gotten this return from this particular item. So we'll set it up here, 401 134A. All right, we set up our breakpoint there. So now we've kind of arrived to where we're at this strings not equal function right here. And now let's go ahead and look at our value or pointer or length of that particular item. And now we see, like I was saying before, we have now the value of this is executed this, and it's saying that the length of this string is going to be 5. So from this, let's go ahead and see if we can access the data in here. So I know that the stored value of this is EA of X. I'm wondering, let's try something. X of C. So let's set up a breakpoint at the next line of code, which would be 0x 4 01 34D. All right, I'm setting up a breakpoint at the next line, just because I want to have access and get the information from the original item. What we can also do is let's see what happens if we have these two registers here, right? RB of X and RB of P. And we know we said, okay, I know that this is particularly my source index. This is going to be my base index. So let's see if we can access any of the information in those other registers there. All right, so my RBP has a character of B. So I want to do one more thing. RBP is going to be your base pointer, right? We know it stored some information here. So let's see what's in RBX. Oh, okay. So here's what's happening here. So we just, by using this character, this X item here, and then the /C, that tells me to print out what is in this particular register using the character format. I have found that as we executed this initial one, when we ran this string length, we know that the length of this particular item in 12D was 5 characters long. And I also know that the item that I'm starting with for executing this is RBX. So RBX, I said, okay, RBX was the original value of my input string, and I already know it just told me that when I executed the string length of this for RBX, the value of it is 5 characters long. So if I want to print out that exact string, what I can do is I can set this up as I can tell it that I want to print 5 characters from my memory address or my register, this address here, that register that is at RBX. I've already printed out the first character. And now what you'll see is it is just printed out all those 5 characters from my first register. So again, going through this kind of line by line, I ran the string length function. I got the length of my R. We confirmed that RBX was indeed what we input into the string. If I know that this is what I input into the string, my source or my hidden string is going to be in RSI. So the first thing I executed with it was getting the length of this, which I knew was 5, and now I have these values. Now, if I go through a little bit more, a little longer portion of code, let's get to this point where we are running this for RBP. We get the string length, and let's stop right here where so before we stopped right on this line of code, and that's how we were able to access this address. So let's stop at this next portion. Let's break here. My objective is to get the length to find out how long my hidden string is. So I want to run this string length function so I know how long the string is. All right, so let's break this right up at if I got it here, I want to have the same line pretty much here. So 401, 357. All right, we got our breakpoint there. Let's run the next code. We'll run it again. I think I might have gotten just slightly out of it. Oh no, okay. So let's go in and get the length of that again. All right, it's still having my length of EA of X at 5. We're gonna let it execute this here. So let's go through our next line of code. And now we have broken it up here where it has executed this initial function, and it's back at our breakpoint 4. Oh, because it's going through the loop. Okay, now we finally got to a point where it stopped at this particular item here. So now we should be able to get the length of that original string. It's telling me that this is 52 characters long. All right, so again, what I did, we had several breakpoints set up in that initial portion. Now I'm finally to a point where this is finished. It has executed this, and it's telling me that my string input is 52 characters long. All right, we already found out that our B of X, right, was our that was what we input into it. So our B of P should be what we're comparing it to. So let's go ahead and just as a sanity check, we will go ahead and look at the address again of our B of P. All right, so that again is our initial function. Now, let's go ahead and we can now get all the characters. Oh, so I want to show you guys one more command as well. Let's go ahead and log this information. I'm logging this so that when we look back on the terminal, we can get the output to the screen. All right, so now that we have this, we can go ahead. We know this is 52 characters long. So I want to print out all 52 characters for my memory on my register of RBP. And that gives us all the items in our register. All right. So this is telling us all the lines or all the characters that are associated with that particular string. I know, it's a little bit of a rough journey, but we made it through. Okay, so I'm going to go back a little bit. Let's get out of this. So remember, this is my other window. If you look right here, you'll see this gbd.txt item here, right? If I were to open that, this is now output, and it is told me, excuse me, what was initially in that function, what was initially in my what that RBP is, right? So this tells me, this basically outputs my it gives us our text message. Not text message. It gives us our it gives us what that hidden string was. All right, so BRO. I'm going to take this. I'm going to see if I can put this somewhere else. I don't want to save this modified buffer. I'm wondering if I can do a text file. So I'm trying to open up a text file in like a new window. I'm gonna see if this copies over. Oh, it does. So if we wanted to, we can go ahead and take out all of this stuff, and let's figure out kind of what the actual lines of code here are, what it's actually saying. And again, I'm doing this probably the long way. I know there's a easy way to do this. Okay, border. This is giving me the size of it and the particular item located there. So it looks like it's going to say border relations somewhere. Border relations at these particular items are all right. Oh, I closed out the thing. I want to find an easy way to kind of parse through this information. So this is our, if we open up our let's open up the gdb.txt again. We see our items here and kind of what it's outputting. And our final line of code is going to be saying border relations with Canada, something along those lines. So let's see. I want to have an easy way to kind of parse this guy. Going through each of these lines of code, I kind of did this offline, but I found that the actual text is border relations with Canada have never been better. So I went offline and I just kind of parsed it that way. All right, so what we can do is then let's exit out of this. The benefit of running this is that we do not have to blow up our bomb. And let's execute this bomb. And it's going to act as for an input. And I'm going to paste this. This is this was basically what the string is when you decode it. And it will tell us, hey, phase one has been diffused. Now we have diffused phase one and it's been successful. I want to stop the lecture here. So if you just press Control C, it will go ahead and exit your program. The other thing we're going to do is set up a text file because this will read from a text file. So I'm going to set up a text file so that I can automatically kind of read the solutions from that. So I'll do a nano diffuse dot text. We'll copy our data there. We'll save this guy. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and run that from the Bomblab. So now when we execute the Bomblab, we're going to go ahead and run our diffuse.text item. And you'll see that I put in this text file here. It automatically ran it and it tells you that phase one is diffused. So for your program, you can do a similar thing where you can have it automatically run your solutions based on what you have already figured out so you don't have to keep on typing it in for each phase. So I set it up like that. It executed it and it's done with phase one. I can go ahead and exit that. And that's pretty much it for today. So this should have given you guys a little bit of a better understanding of how to run through your phase. Now, keep in mind that was one version of it, and that was a very simple phase. If we were to go into what you guys actually have for the Bomblab, you'll see that it's quite different. So we'll go to. I downloaded that Bomblab. Mine's is Bomb 11. If we go into that, if we just do an object, yeah, we'll read it from GDB. Why not? GDB, All right, so here is your Bomblab or a similar one to it, right? When I look at phase one here, you notice that it is not identical to the one that we just did, right? So you will have to go through your each individual phase and kind of figure out what's going there, how are we doing this, what are we executing, right? So go through that line by line, determine what is scanning in and how those particular actions are going. Same thing with your other phases, determine what's kind of going on with each phase. Use these tools that were shown, the breakpoints and the getting the length of the registers as well as printing out each character. That will be helpful in terms of determining what you are doing for your lab. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day and I will talk to you later.